How to manifest, going general. Oh, I have like kind of a wave of energy moving through me, and I'm not quite sure what we're gonna get, but I'm excited to try to pull this out and see what it looks like. I'm sitting here journaling, and I've shared before that like when I journal, I write my annual mantra, my yearly mantra at the top of the page. And this year is 2022, the year of inner abundance. And I was just sitting here reflecting on, we're almost to the end of the 9th month. So we only have 3 left. We're almost over with this year of inner abundance, and very much reflecting on what it's brought me and where I am now, like in my headspace, in my inner world, compared to where I was at the very beginning of this year. And what I'm reflecting on right now is, I know in the past I've had a lot of ideas, a lot of very specific ideas about what I want to manifest, like what I want in my life, what do I desire. And even last year's mantra is like a perfect handy example of like, it was 2021, the year of speaking truth. And going into 2021, like coming off of the end of 2020, I felt like I was walking on eggshells in a lot of my relationships. I was doing it at work. I felt very stifled, and I very naturally, very like kind of logically came to the realization, like, I'm going to have the year of speaking truth, and that is what is needed to overcome this feeling of being stifled. And so that was what I did. I set out on 2021, the year of speaking truth. And as they all have been, every single one of my yearly mantras, it's like, you think that you know what you want. Like, you think that speaking truth in that example is the thing that is going to get you to where you want to be. And the process of what actually unfolded, it was, I mean, when you hear, especially in that example, when you hear speaking truth, like, it sounds like you're going to tell somebody else. You're going to like speak the truth about your boundaries, and you're going to like stand up for yourself, and and that's what I had in my mind, right? It was like, I'm finally going to stand up for myself. And I laugh because it's just, we think we know what we want. And like Abraham Hicks talks about, like, when you really zoom out of like, what is it that you actually want, and why do you want it? Like, why did I want to speak truth? Why did I want to have the year of speaking truth? Well, because I didn't want to feel stifled anymore. I wanted to feel open and free and able to be my authentic self, whatever that was. And I didn't feel free to do that at the time. And so I thought, if I could speak my truth, then I'll feel free. And what I see, and what Abraham Hicks talks on and on and on about, if you're wanting more on this, is like, the only reason we ever want anything is so that we can feel better in the having of it. Like, even in that speaking truth example, I wanted it because I wanted to feel differently. I wanted to feel better. I didn't want to feel like I'm walking on eggshells anymore. I didn't want to feel like I'm having to bite my tongue about what I think in this world, like what goes on inside of me. Like, I want to share my perspective. I want to say what's true for me. And I don't feel like there's space for me to do that. I don't feel like I'm allowed to do that. And so I thought that speaking truth was going to be about coming up against those restrictions that other people were putting on me and speaking my truth anyway, whether they liked it or not. That's what I thought it was going to be. And it was like so many other levels of our spiritual awakening, it was yet another doorway into yet a deeper level of myself. Because when I started the year of speaking truth, almost instantly, like I'm going to say within the first month or so, I saw it is not about speaking it. It's about knowing it. And the reason I'm not speaking it is not because of a restriction anybody else is putting upon me. It is because I do not know it clearly enough to say it out loud. Period. It's not that I'm not saying it, it's that I don't have anything to say. And that was a humbling realization. That was yet another layer of disillusionment around what causes us to feel the way we do, because up until that point, I had 100% put the blame squarely on all of these people who are putting these restrictions on me. How dare they? And you know what? I shouldn't have to obey those restrictions. I'm going to just speak my truth. I'm going to do it's like there were no restrictions. Like ever. They said what they said, and I said what I was capable of saying, which was not a lot. And because it wasn't a lot, and it felt like I wasn't really expressing myself, and that felt frustrating, no doubt about it. And that frustration, I projected it onto them. And that was how the year of speaking truth was born. I aimed at something that I thought was the problem. And Elizabeth Gilbert calls that a good guess. Good guess. You know, good guess that you thought you needed to speak your truth and that then you would be happy. Like, good guess that you thought you needed to make a lot of money and then you would be happy. Good guess that you thought you needed to get married and then you would be happy. Good guess. Good guess. And it was thanks to that experience, the year of speaking truth, where I feel like I turned inward on a way deeper level, which that was after 5 years of going inward. You know, like it's like in my mind, like I've heard people like talk and kind of like hang their ego, and I know I've done it before, hang their ego on like, oh, I've been, 20 years on this spiritual journey, or I've been studying astrology longer than you've been alive. That's my favorite one. It's like, do you really think that has much to do with it? Because I found a layer within myself last year that was like virgin territory. I'd never stepped foot in there before. And then this year, because of that experience of like, wow, like how much of myself is really left unexplored was kind of my takeaway after last year. It was like, is there a whole nother realm, a whole nother territory in there that I've never stepped foot in? Is there? And that's how the year of inner abundance was born. Like, abundance, yeah, like on an energetic level, like I totally get that, like having a flowing, easy, blissful experience, energetic abundance. Yes, I do want that. And, I'm going to take another stab at it. I'm going to make another guess, and I'm going to say that it has nothing to do with anything that's going on around me. I'm going to take my bow and arrow and aim it even more deeply inside of myself and see, is there a whole nother layer in there that I hadn't found yet? Almost 10 months in, yeah, there was. And holy shit. Like, I think about where I was at the beginning of this year, like coming into the new year, and I think about where I am now. And I would summarize what I've found as true security, true safety, inner stability, coming home inside of myself, really catching the whiff of unconditional love for myself, feeling God's unconditional love for me, being able to receive that. When I really allow myself to open to how much God loves me, it makes me bawl like a baby every time. And before this year, I did not cry. I only cried when I quote unquote lost control, that was when I cried. Was when I couldn't help it, you know? Like I didn't have the ability, the muscular ability to hold it in. So it came out, and that was my experience of crying for the first, 33 years of my life. And I described it in a video earlier this year, like like around March, as like when you bring, like just in a physical example, when you take a bowling ball and you put it in a 5-gallon bucket of water, that's the 5-gallon bucket is full of water, and then you put the bowling ball in, a lot of water has to come out to make space for the bowling ball. And that's what this year has felt like, is like more that bowling ball, that presence that I've brought into myself felt like my divine feminine energy. And that in order to bring more of my true self, more of my energetic, whole divine self into my physical vessel, a lot of water has to come out. And it was on 2/22/22, February 22nd of 2022, that the crying started. And so it took a while. It took like almost 2 months of getting into this year of inner abundance. And I felt like those first like 7 or 8 weeks, like leading up to that moment on 2/22/22, was kind of like grasping around in the dark. Like I would write it on the page, the year of inner abundance, and it wouldn't connect to anything. It wouldn't land anywhere. It felt like a dark room where it's a big one, and I'm looking for this one little light switch, and I have no idea where it is, but I know it's in here. And if I keep feeling on the wall, if I just keep showing up and feeling a little bit more, and then show up and feel a little bit more, and eventually 2/22/22, the crying started. And that started about 6 weeks of, I work from home. I don't have to, that's like all the time I work from home, and I don't really have to go anywhere if I don't want to, which I'm very grateful for, because for about 6 weeks I cried like off and on all day, every day. And sometimes it was my own like personal memories of old pain and hurt that I had never really let myself feel, like had never really let myself like process that pain, and it was just still in there, and it came out during that time. Other times it felt, the only way I can describe it is that like these are the collective's tears, like these are collective traumas. Like one example, there were a lot of examples, was crying the tears of slavery. Like the people who were slaves, the people who kept them slaves, all of those souls are crying. And it felt like I was the physical vessel through which that pain was being felt. That, again, is just one example because there were a lot. And those 6 weeks, I felt like what that allowed was a deepening of my self-acceptance. It was a deepening of my relationship with my emotions, where, like I said, like before, crying was something that happened when I lost control of myself. And I feel like in those 6 weeks, I surrendered control. I gave it back. I don't even want it. Why do I need to control myself? What is the point of that? And I let myself feel what I feel. And now it takes almost nothing to make me cry. And I cry multiple times a week over happy things or sad things or whatever moves that energy. And if that energy wants to move like that, then I let it. And it's in that level of self-acceptance that is the inner stability, that is the true safety and security. It's like I'm no longer at risk of rejecting myself. And I'm going to rephrase that because that doesn't feel quite true yet. It feels more like like I am way less at risk for rejecting myself now than I ever was. And the thing about that is that now when other people disagree with what I say, or they misunderstand what I say, or they're bored by what I say, they're not interested, they're indifferent, like whatever kind of reaction I get from people, it doesn't have me beating up on myself. And that again feels like the nature of true safety, true security, inner stability. I think all of those things are very much correlated with our self-acceptance. And for that, I actually go back to Virgo energy. Self-acceptance, radical self-acceptance, warts and all self-acceptance, meaning the good, the bad, and the ugly all gets accepted. That at that point, it's all in one soup called, this is the part of me that I love. And at that point, does it even matter which parts are good and which parts are bad and which parts are ugly? Who's coming up with those titles anyway? Where does that come from anyway? In that self-acceptance, I'm safe. I'm safe from anybody else's disagreement. I'm safe from anybody else's judgment. I'm safe from whatever anybody else might decide to do with their lives that may or may not include me. I'm safe with myself. And I feel like this is inner abundance. Inner abundance is the ability to feel peace, to feel contentment. I wonder, I really do, because this is new for me, new territory for sure. To feel content, I don't think I've ever felt this way before these last few months of the year of inner abundance. Like, I've always felt ambitious. I've mostly felt ambitious in my life. I have like longings for all the things I want to do and be and become, until now, where I don't know exactly where all of that longing was coming from. I take that back. I do know it was coming from unmet emotional needs. It was all of that ambition was pointing me towards doing things that I thought would get myself validated by other people in the long run. And it's like this year I learned how to validate myself, that like inner abundance is the ability to validate your own experience so that you're safe no matter if anybody else wants to validate your experience or not. You have an abundance of validation. You have an abundance of permission to be here. You have an abundance of freedom to follow your energy wherever it is leading you. An abundance of creative freedom to do it the way that you think it should be done. You're safe. You're safe in a world where you accept you. And so many times I've wanted things. I've wanted myself to do things. I've wanted other people to do things. I've wanted to meet goals. I've wanted so many things. And I was having a conversation yesterday where somebody was talking about manifestation and, that they actually think of themselves as a really good manifester. And yet sometimes there are certain things that they just simply cannot manifest for themselves. And it's really frustrating. And I think that is like kind of the perfect cap to this conversation as far as what if those things aren't meant for you? What if those things would detract from the quality of your experience? Do you still want your manifestation powers to be able to bring them to you? Or would you rather there be this benevolent buffer zone where you can only magnetically pull to you that which is good for you, that which is in your own highest good? And this is where I think how to manifest, how I've come to it, this is what's true for me, kind of take it or leave it. How I've come to it is just like Abraham Hicks teaches, why do you want that thing? Why do you want what it is that you think you need to manifest? And for me, when I've asked myself that question over these last 6 years, every single time the answer is because I want to feel differently. I want to feel better. And if you can get to that state of being that honest about what it is that you really want, like, I don't necessarily want to be a public speaker. I want a lot of attention on me. I want a lot of attention on me because that would feel incredibly validating to what I'm saying, to my perspective, to my stories. If I had an audience of 1 million people, I feel like my ego is telling me that that would feel validating. And I know from listening to people with audiences that big or bigger, it's like they'll tell you that, sell 15 million copies and you'll be reminded that that's actually small potatoes when you look over here at freaking Captain Underpants sold 80 million copies. What now? Like, what now? What are you really doing? Like, we're all just splashing around in such a teeny tiny little pond, even if it is a big pond. And seeking that external validation, like, it's never enough. Never. Like, when you get 1 million, then you want 5 million. When you get 5, then you want 20. Then, like, it's just never enough. There's a story in Martha Beck's book, The Way of Integrity, where she had a client who was taking his company public, and they lived through the IPO or whatever, and basically he made like $200 million in one day. One day, $200 million. And he called her fucked up out of his mind on drugs and alcohol at the after party and is screaming, blubbering, when is it gonna be enough? I thought this would be it. I thought this would be enough, and it's still not enough. When is it gonna be enough? And I love you so much that I feel like I want to say what I think the truth is here. I think the answer is never. It's never gonna be enough. When you're seeking things outside of yourself, it's never gonna be enough. External validation will never be enough. And the sooner that we can jump straight to the end, like, since this is the only thing that ever works, like, can we just skip straight here to how to manifest is how to influence your own emotion, how to cultivate a space inside of yourself where you can feel how you want to feel right now, today. And to work out the energy blocks that are in there, it definitely takes life experience. It takes, interacting with other people. Other people are going to come in and out of your world, and, you're going to watch YouTube videos maybe, and hear from people that you'll maybe even never meet. So there's going to be like outside input into this process where you're finding the pieces of the puzzle and, you know, uncovering them within yourself and working through these energy blocks that are keeping them hidden. Like, that's not to say that that has to be something that like we go into a cave for 2 years and like work it all out within ourselves and now we're good to go. Like, I genuinely believe there's a cooperative element to doing this. Like, I don't think we're meant to do this in isolation, but I think it matters a lot when you go to manifest something, your motives behind why you want that thing. And even like, take this for an example, because in my group, we were talking about this a lot lately with like I want to help people feel better. That seems to be like a pretty common consensus amongst the spiritual community of like, you know, maybe we're all healers. Maybe we all have healing capabilities where we all have the healing touch in some way to help other people feel better. And that can be a very seductive thing to want to manifest in your life. Like, I want to be of service. I want to manifest myself into areas of being of service. I want to make an impact. I want to help other people feel better however I can. You know, that's such a saintly, noble thing to want to manifest. And I tell you, there's still ego in it. There's still external validation in it. There's like thinking that you know better. And I'm saying this to myself, like who am I to assert my help onto anybody? You know, like, in what way do we really help other people? And at this point in my journey, and I would say my year of inner abundance has had a lot to do with this, it's like how we truly be of service to other people is by being stable and secure in our own right, being healthy in our own right. We were talking about the analogy of being the tree. The tree doesn't chase people around trying to put shade over their head. The tree just is where it is. It is what it is. It's doing its own thing. It's soaking up the nutrients that it can get from the ground. It's absorbing the light that it can get through its leaves. It's drinking the water when the water comes. It's moving with the winds when the storm blows through. It's doing what it needs to do in the changing landscape that is the tree's experience. But the tree doesn't move. The tree just is. It's just being the tree. And every once in a while, like, I don't know if you've ever read the book Siddhartha. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. Every once in a while, somebody will come and they will sit underneath your tree, literally. They'll come and they will be cooled by the shade of coming into the tree's experience. That person is served by that shade. And the tree never actually meant to do anything. The tree is just being the tree. The fact that other people find service and value and nurturing from the tree literally doesn't care. You know, the tree is good. The tree is standing strong with its own roots and its own experience and its own health at the forefront of what it's doing. And by focusing like a machine on its own health, it gets bigger and stronger and bigger and more shade, more leaves, longer branches, more space for healing to occur within the tree's experience. The health of the tree is the tree's only concern. So how to manifest? I would offer this seed, same as Abraham planted it into me, as far as when you want anything, the first question is why? Why do you want that thing? I heard somebody the other day talking about, I want to find my audience. And I resonate with that hardcore. I've wanted that myself many times. And I can't say for that other person, right? Only you can ever know for yourself, inside of yourself, what's real. But I know for myself, when I've wanted to manifest finding my audience, I wanted the validation. And the other thing with like wanting that external validation, it's like you can't control other people. You know, finding your audience, like that requires opening you up to a large group of people, and a subset of those people are going to resonate with what you say and want more. That's about how I would define your audience, you know, the people who want to hear more from you. And a subset of those people that you're exposed to will be 100% indifferent to what you've offered. It'll go in one ear and out the other, and they won't give you a second thought in their whole entire life. And a subset of those people will be upset by what you offer. They will be frightened or angry or triggered or offended. They'll feel attacked by what you say, even when you feel like you were offering nothing but love. And that's the thing with like wanting to manifest shit in the outside world, like wanting your audience. Okay, you'll get your audience, and you'll get a bunch of people who don't give a shit about what you're talking about. That's hard to wear. And you'll get a couple people, you know, a pretty small percentage, I would say. If what you're offering is filled with love, then yeah, probably a very small percentage of people are going to hate on that, but it's not impossible. They're out there. And they're in the mix to show you that this is not actually what you're wanting. You know, like I was extremely triggered by people hating on my work, me putting myself out there to try to find my audience, to try to manifest my audience, and reading comments that were filled with love felt incredible. It felt life affirming and so good, so cup filling. And when you open it and the comment starts out with "how dare you," and goes on to talk about all of the ways where you are the worst thing that they've ever seen, blah, 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 you should stop doing this, like making fun of you, like picking out on probably what are your most biggest insecurities and throwing them in your face. Like when we go out into the world wanting that external validation, it's like the external invalidation has to be a part of it just to drive us back inside of ourselves and show us that this is not where this comes from. You can't get it from the outside world, because when you cast your net, you're gonna get some nurturing, some nourishment, and some poison. Because taking those comments into my system felt like a grenade going off in my heart. And that'll knock you off course, knock you off of creating for a minute at least, until you can figure out how to put your insides back together. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting journey to try to manifest things in the outside world. It reminds me very much of the movie Bedazzled. Like, I think it was released in the year 2000 with Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley, where he meets the devil and Elizabeth Hurley, and she gives him 3 wishes, and he wishes for things like, I want to be a really powerful, wealthy man. And he wakes up in this life in this big, beautiful mansion, and he looks out at his big, beautiful view, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden there's like gunfire, and the drug enforcement is like bearing down on his property because he's some big like cartel lord, and they're like trying to capture him. And that's about what it's like to try to manifest anything in the outside world. It's a lot like that, as far as when you get what you want in the outside world, you're going to get some of the exact opposite. You know, like, oh, I want a lot of money because I think that's going to make me feel free. I want, you know, a big audience because I think that's going to make me feel valid and secure in what I'm doing. And it's like, yeah, and then you get some of the exact opposite, and now you don't know what to do. Now you've got all of this like wealth plus this hole in the bottom of your boat where it's just never enough when you're trying to fill it up with external things. So how to manifest, I think, is to turn inward, ask ourselves why we want what we want, and how could we skip to the end and give ourselves that thing in the first place.